Hello. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a sourdough series. We're actually going on vacation in a couple days, so I'm going to feed my starter. I'm going to discard, feed my starter, and then pop it in the fridge, and hopefully it'll be okay for a week until we get back. And then I'll take it out, feed it, activate it, and then go about our normal business. Over the weekend, or actually yesterday, I went ahead and I discarded a little bit and I fed it. So it rose up to, I don't know if you could see right here, and then dropped back down, which is totally normal and what I would have expected. So I'm going to go ahead and discard a little bit. You know what? Let me work on my tray here. And I think I finally have like a good ratio. I mean, I kind of like measure the amount of flour and water I'm putting in, but I don't really measure how much I'm like discarding. But the starter is pretty thick compared to what I had started out with, which is good. Right. And this stuff is like cement once it dries, so that's why I try not to make a huge mess of my jar. So let's see here. And as you can see, it's pretty like runny right now because it's unfed. Once it's fed, it'll be a bit thicker. Okay. And when I get back, I'm actually going to be making a few discard sandwich loaves because my family really enjoyed that last time I made it. So I'm discarding about, let's say like, not quite half. If I was smart, I would have taken a spoon and did this, but you know what, we're in it now. Okay. Let's say I'm like discarding about a third of this. You know, let me discard a little bit more. Okay. And I'll kind of show you what it's going to look like. Okay. So it was at the rubber band and now it's just kind of like just below it. Okay, pop this guy in here, and what I'm gonna do is get my kitchen scale, put this guy on. My best friend is now getting into sourdough, so she's been so funny with she's like, oh, I gotta name it. I'm like, you know what, I never named my starter. I just call it this guy. Okay. So I'm gonna put in about, I think I'm gonna do 30 grams of flour, and I'll probably do like 20 grams of water. So let's measure this out. I'm at 15, so it's probably just 2 scoops. All right, so just added 31 grams of the King Arthur organic bread flour. And then I'm going to go ahead and add like 20 grams of water. And they say to use filtered water because tap water has chlorine in it or some kind of chemicals that can kill your starter. So let me go ahead and add this in. Okay, it's at 41. Okay, 51, exactly 20 grams. Whoops. Okay, and I'm gonna give that a good little mix. And then I'm just gonna pop this right in the fridge and leave it. So it will rise up a little bit and then it's gonna fall again, but that's okay because like I said, I'm not gonna be around to feed it for a whole week. By the time that you guys see this video, we will be back and I can show you exactly what it looks like after that. So right now this is pretty, it's pretty thick. Like that is what this starter is looking like right now. And as you can see, it's back up to the rubber band. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put the cap back on. And I do this a little bit loosely. I don't want to over tighten the cap. So as you can see, it's like pretty loose. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in the fridge alongside my discard, because discard is pretty much just unfed starter. And when I get back, I'll probably also change my jar, because you're not supposed to kind of keep reusing the jar, because I think it's like more prone to growing mold. So when I get back, I'll show you what that looks like. Hi, so we are back from vacation. I have to figure out what to do with my sourdough starter. I pulled it out. So we got back on late Monday night. Yesterday, I was like running all over the place trying to do errands, go grocery shopping, get the kids' stuff ready for camp today. So I didn't feed my starter yesterday, which I had originally intended to do. So I'm going to feed it today. I took these out of the fridge yesterday. So this is my discard. And as you can see, there's like a little bit of hooch that's on top of it. I'm just going to like mix that in, but I also need to discard. So this is my starter. Before I left, it rose up pretty high and then dropped back down. So there's no hooch or anything on top of it. It just does look a little watery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discard some of this to my little discard. And then I'm going to feed it, because I do want to bake a loaf. I think I'll probably end up baking it tomorrow. One thing that you should know is, especially if you're going to leave your starter in the fridge for a longer period of time, when you go to close the jar, do not close it so that is completely like tight. You want to leave it a little bit like loose. So this way, like as the pressures or whatever, the gases build up inside that, it doesn't like explode your jar in your fridge. So keep that in mind. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and discard some of this. Got like a little plastic spoon here because like it's a little easier to clean. And actually, you know what I might do? I think I'm gonna grab a new jar, so that, because I do like to change out my jars every so often. Let me go grab a new jar. Okay, so now I've got a clean jar, clean cover, discard. So we're just gonna go ahead and discard some of this and put some in this new jar for my starter. So this is gonna be the jar with my starter in it. I think that should be good. So this is one of those mason jars, and I just kind of filled it up to where it says wide mouth, like right underneath it. I don't know what the measurement is. It looks like it's to the 2. So it's like 2 ounces of starter in here. And the rest I'm just going to discard, I think. I do want to make some sandwich loaves, so I'm trying to build up my discard a little bit. I do want to try some recipes. So I've got quite a bit. I think that's plenty of discard. I'll just put a little bit more in here. And this jar will get cleaned out. Okay. It's extremely, extremely hot here today. We were in Puerto Rico for a week for my husband's best friend's wedding. And it was hot there. We were like right on the water. It was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. The bride and groom were so stunning. And it was so funny. So right before the wedding, we were sitting outside, it was like on this golf course, and there was like a little pond, and this huge iguana. I mean, it was like big. Kept coming up to the altar, and they kept like shooing it away, and it was huge, right? And you just keep seeing it like. So it came back like 3 times, and people kept like shooing it away, and eventually, like at the end of the wedding, we all looked to the right to like across like the way, and it was just sitting there just watching the wedding. It was hilarious, but it was a good time. But anyways, it was hot there, and we came back and it's even hotter here. It's crazy. But I think we're supposed to get rain soon, so that'll be good. All right. Enough talking from me. Let's go ahead and measure out. I think I'm going to do, let's see, probably like, I think I'm going to feed it 25 grams of flour and probably like 10-ish or so of water. Actually, I have to go get a filtered water right now. Okay, a little bit of a hot mess this morning. So let's go ahead and measure out. It's 10, 20, 22, 25 grams of the King Arthur's King Arthur's organic bread flour. And then I think I'm going to do, I don't know, let me see, maybe like 15 grams of water. Okay. I'm going to give it a good mix. Basically, I'm just trying to look for like the correct consistency. And let's hope with all this humidity and stuff that it rises, and then I can go ahead and start getting my loaf ready. Okay. So the consistency looks kind of like that. Grab my rubber band. And we're going to mark it off. Come on. Figure I'll scrape down my spatula with this spoon. Don't want to make a mess of the whole jar since I just put it in a nice clean jar. Okay. And then we're going to mark this off, and then we'll see how long it takes for it to double in size. I'm actually kind of curious because it is very humid here today. All right. Like I said, we're going to cover it, and I don't want to cover it too tight. So just like that. It's got plenty more to go, actually. I need a little bit tighter than that. Okay, so like this. I can lift it, but there's still like wiggle room. I'm telling you, today, I don't know. I am just a mess today, but I think that's what you're supposed to be like when you get back from vacation. You need a vacation from your vacation. Okay, so I marked my jar, and I'm gonna come back in, I'm probably gonna check on it in like an hour or so and see what happens. Like I said, I'm very curious considering that it's so warm today, what's gonna happen. All right, well, it's been about 4 hours since we fed our starter, and this is what we're looking at. So it's more than doubled in size. I'm not going to go ahead and use it just yet because I want to see if it's going to rise a little bit more, and then we want to see it drop just a little bit. And then once that happens, it's at like its optimal time to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of set this aside for a little bit longer, and I'll come back and check on it, and hopefully it will have either risen a little bit more or fallen like just a bit. I'm back. So it's been quite a while, and I'm going to go ahead and get the process of making my loaf started. So my starter looks like this. It rose, I mean, it didn't really quite fall as much as I would want it to, but it's fine. It looks like it's starting to. So I've got my scale, got my starter, my flour, my water, my salt. So I am going to go ahead, get my scale up here. Okay, and I'm going to add 50 grams of my starter. And it looks so good. See, it's my starter there. We're going to add 50 grams of starter, 350 grams of filtered water, and 500 grams of flour. I'm just going to use regular all-purpose flour because the organic bread flour is kind of expensive. So with the amount of bread that I make, I definitely cannot afford to be spending like, I think it's like 10 bucks a bag or something like that for the King Arthur's organic bread flour. Quite expensive. Okay, so I've got, let's see, about 50 grams, 53 grams of my starter. Got a paper towel here to put my dirty stuff down. Okay. So I actually have 54 grams of starter in here. To this, I'm going to add 350 grams of bottled water. So let's do this. Zeroing out my scale. Okay, 350 exactly. So that's, I mean, almost a full bottle of water. And we're going to mix this up to incorporate our starter into the water. Okay. And then to this, I'm going to add 10 grams of salt and 500 grams of flour. And I already have my salt measured out. So let's go ahead and zero the scale out. For some reason, I just like to put the flour in first. I just don't want to put the salt in there because I feel like it's going to get like kind of clumpy. So 500 grams. It was funny. I was talking to my friend about, so my best friend got into sourdough. So she's been baking loaves and she's doing a great job. But it's funny because I'll tell her like, you know, what I'm doing. And she's like, oh, I do it a little differently because her sister-in-law actually gave her, like, her sister-in-law has been making loaves for quite some time. So she's kind of perfected her process. So she's like, oh, I do mine a little differently. Like, I feed my starter a little differently, or I let it rise a little, you know, for a different amount of time. And it's so funny because it's like sourdough really is, it's so different for everybody because it depends on, you know, if your house is humid. Oop, that's quite a lot. Went over. Oh, 505 grams. So, you know, it depends on if your house is really hot and humid. You know, your dough is going to rise a little faster. If, you know, obviously if your house is cooler, then it's not going to rise as fast. Also, you know, depending on, I don't know, how strong your starter is or the conditions in your house, you might need to feed it different ratios. I was feeding mine like equal amounts starter, flour, and water, but today I didn't because the starter actually looked a little thicker. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna put as much water. And it's still, you know, it still rose. So, and I'm pretty sure we're still gonna get a great bread. I'm hoping to use this bread for a recipe during the week. Planning to make some paninis, so maybe I'll record that. I tell you, when you get back from vacation, it's just like getting back into the grind of things. I told the kids, my son is super picky, and while we were in Puerto Rico, there was not much that he really like would eat. Gianna tried everything and she fell in love with the rice and beans. She was getting it at every restaurant because she wanted to compare which one she liked more. So she was quite the connoisseur of rice and beans down there. But my son didn't really eat a lot. He found hot dogs and like French fries and I don't know, some fruits here and there. And we got pizza one night. So, you know, I said to him, I was like, oh, when we get back, you know, it's going to be back to the normal healthy eating and stuff. And he's like, what do you mean? We've been eating healthy. I'm like, honey, fries every night. It's not exactly the most nutritious. So he's like, oh, yeah, I get it. And we found, when we went to Puerto Rico, we decided that when we got there, we'd buy some snacks and stuff like that because we did an Airbnb. And we got a pack of Oreos. We found a pack of the Post Malone ones. They were so good. So that was like our treat while we were down there. All right. So my dough is looking pretty good. Looks like this. So you can see it's a little sticky, but it's not, like it's still pulling away from the dough whisk pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cover this and let it sit for about an hour because I have to finish up work and I have to go get the kids from camp. So this is just going to kind of sit while I do that. And when I come back, I will go ahead and do like a stretch and fold with it. I usually just do one, but I might try and do two to see, I don't know, if it makes a difference. So I'll do those stretch and folds. It's usually every half hour you're supposed to do a stretch and fold. I'll cover it and I'll let it, I think it's called bulk ferment or rise overnight. And then I can bake this tomorrow morning. Before I forget, so with the remaining sourdough starter that I have, I just used it for the bread, for the dough. I'm going to scrape down the sides and I'm basically just going to pop this in the fridge. I'm just going to move the rubber band down to where it is now. You can kind of see where it is. So there's not a lot. You don't need a ton of starter. And then normally I'll like feed it and then stick it in the fridge, but I think I'm just gonna stick this in the fridge because I don't see myself making another loaf later this week. Also, I have enough discard, so I don't want too much of it. So, like I said, I always have the trouble with this cap. So, it's still loose. I'm gonna go stick this in the fridge, and that's pretty much it. When I want to use it again, I'll take it out of the fridge, and usually I'll put, I'll feed it like a little bit, maybe like 10 grams, 15 grams of flour and 10 to 15 grams of water just to kind of like activate it. And then I'll let it come to room temperature and then I'll feed it again so that I can actually use it because like I said, it's not a ton of starter in here. This is probably This might be about like 50 grams, I would think, because we did use about half. So into the fridge this guy goes. All right, so it's been about an hour and I am going to do a stretch and fold on my dough. So this is what it's looking like now. And you might want to wet your hands before you do this because it might get a little sticky. So wet hand, and all you do is you're just going to grab some, pull it up, and plop it over. So it's up and plop it over. Then you're gonna do it again. And you're supposed to go around it like once. So stretch and fold. Okay, again, stretch and fold. So you can see that it's kind of starting to create a little bit of this tension. Again, we're going to kind of stretch and plop. Now I go around twice, only because a lot of the times I forget how many times I've gone around. So, like that. And it starts forming this really nice ball. So the way you do it is you go like north, south, east, west kind of thing. You just go in a circle. You do 4. Okay. And fold. Maybe because I go around so many times, I don't really, that's maybe why I don't do so many of them. But anyways, here we go. I'm going to leave that and let it sit for a half an hour. And I think I'm going to try and do another set of these stretch and folds. Normally I would just do one, cover this with a towel and let it sit overnight, and then I would bake it in the morning. But I think I'm going to go ahead and do another set of stretch and folds. All right, it is the next day. So my dough has been on my counter covered and rising. And let's see, I haven't looked, so I'm really like hoping that it's risen. Oh, okay. So let me show you. It looks really good. All right. And there's lots of like nice bubbles in there. So next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this out on a floured counter. I'm just going to put like, just like a little bit of flour. You don't need too much. Put that over there. Now I'm going to just kind of shape the dough. And you know what? Let me get a bench scraper. I usually use that to kind of scrape everything out of the bowl. Now we're going to turn this guy over. Oh, I'm so excited that it rose like that. And I did 2 stretch and folds on this last night, because quite honestly, I forgot. After the second one, I was just kind of doing my thing, getting dinner ready, and I kind of forgot about it. So, and we've got like a little bit left in the bowl. It's a little, let's see, not too sticky, at least. Okay, so it scrapes off the bowl pretty easily. We're just gonna kind of plop this in. It actually, you know what, I lied. It is a little sticky, but that's okay because it'll be fine. Still gonna produce, I think, a delicious loaf bread. The kids always get so excited when they come home and they smell and see fresh bread. Hopefully this loaf will last because I'm planning on using it either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going out with a friend tonight to a book club meeting. I love to read, so she invited me out, and the book that they read was Babel? I don't know how to pronounce it, but not my typical genre, but I did it on audiobook because it's a pretty long book, and I read actual books pretty slowly, so it was good. I liked it, and tonight we're going to discuss it. Now, since I've scraped this bowl, I'm just going to flour it because I don't have like a banneton, you know, those fancy little bowls with the cloth that people put their sourdough in. So I just use a floured bowl. Like, just put a lot of flour on it and it'll be fine. So just floured. So we are going to basically just kind of like form this ball. We're going to try and create some tension. So that's basically what we're doing here. We're just creating some tension. So we're not really kneading the dough, but so I'm going to kind of like this. We just want some tension. Like I said, my dough is pretty sticky, so there we go. Now, as you can see, as I'm doing it, it's just like I said, creating tension. And you get this nice little ball. And there's actually, I could see like an air bubble right on top here. Wish I could kind of do this at a different angle, but you're kind of propped up against my counter right now. All right, so we got some good tension. I'm gonna get a little bit more flour because my hands are pretty sticky. Just kind of do this here. Okay. You can also, I think you could put like olive oil on your hands too. That would work. I feel like I've seen a video, somebody was making bread and they did olive oil. All right, so I've got this cute little ball here. And I'm going to put this in this bowl, seam side up. Now, it doesn't really have a seam, so it's gonna look kind of like this. I don't know if you can really see that well, but anyways, I'm gonna let that rest for about a half an hour. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and preheat my Dutch oven to 450 degrees, I believe. Yes, 450 degrees. And in a half an hour, I'm going to score the sourdough and pop it into the Dutch oven and bake it. All right, so it's been about a half an hour and my dough was kind of in this bowl right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this dough out onto this parchment paper. I'm going to score it and then pop it in my Dutch oven and bake it covered for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to uncover it. And I think I'm going to lower the heat a little bit to like, it's at 450 now, and then I'll lower it down to like 410 and bake it for the like remaining 20 to 22 minutes. So now this is the part that I always mess up because the sourdough never gets in the middle of the parchment paper. It's always like off to one side. So we're going to give this a try. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to try to be successful here. And maybe we're just going to do it this way. And hope that the bread doesn't go flying everywhere. And, oh, there we go. Ah, it's off to the side again. That's all right. This is what happens. I don't know why I cannot get this down to a science, but that's okay. So we've got our loaf here, and I'm just going, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a little bit of flour on it because I want to be able to see my beautiful design that I do. So I'm just going to put like a little bit of flour on it. I think because my dough is kind of, it's still pretty wet, but you know what? It'll be fine. So we're just going to do this. Yeah. And now when I score it, hopefully you'll be able to see the beautiful design. All right. Just put like a little bit of flour on it. Okay. And I'm not that creative, so I usually just do like something on the side and whatever. But I'm going to just do a big old X on my bread this time. And I don't have one of those fancy razors, but a sharp knife does the trick just as well. So we're going to do a score there. And some people, I believe they put like ice cubes in their Dutch oven when they're baking this. I don't. I think it's just supposed to make it like kind of puff up a little bit more. I don't know. All right. So I just did a little X action here. Let me show you. It just looks like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and pop it in my Dutch oven. The Dutch oven is on and it's really hot, so I'm probably not going to show you that part. But it's going to go in here, like I said, cover it, bake it for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to lower the heat because last time when I lowered the heat, I felt like the bottom didn't overbake. So I'm going to lower the heat and then I'll bake it for the next 20 to 22 minutes. Okay, so I just pulled this out of the oven after 20 minutes of baking it covered. This is what we're looking at. I'm now gonna pop this back into the oven. I lowered the heat to 410 degrees and I'm gonna bake this for another 20 to 22 minutes. All right, it's been another 22-ish minutes and this is what our beautiful bread is looking like.